Welcome to another episode of Elementality, everybody. Excited to be with you. Your co-host Carl Richards is here in studio. Host Reese Harper, just after a tasty lunch, and going to try to keep the energy high.
For sure.
So, if you haven't listened to this, the first episode of this series yet, you might want to go back to the last one, where we talked about a new future for a new business model for what we're currently calling the 99%. Is that?
Yeah.
And I think what we wanted to cover today is we're gonna start a series of main problems that we see with the traditional financial planning service and traditional tool set that has really caused the cost to serve and the cost to acquire customers to just be far too high in order to really reach the masses. You know, our industry is still kind of struggling to really scale our influence into the 100 million households that are really being either underserved or completely left out of the picture. Could even be more than that. So
Yeah, and so this episode is about a very specific problem. And by problem, we just mean a thing that we need to solve, something that we like to think about, a puzzle that we need a solution for. And what's this problem we want to talk about? This problem, and we're going to talk a little bit about the solution.
Yeah, I think the way we would say the problem is that the traditional financial planning service and the software we use to support that service is too time-consuming to set up, and it's too time-consuming to maintain.
So bringing on a new client to get them set up costs us too much time.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Kitces estimates it's somewhere around 15 hours on average. If you're doing a comprehensive financial plan and you're truly trying to serve someone in a comprehensive way.
Yeah. And that's normally, like, nobody comes in, which is interesting to me, nobody comes in and says, hey, I need a comprehensive financial plan. They come with a question, you know, maybe asset allocation or investment performance or insurance or whatever, a question. And in order to answer that question, we've got to do this 15 hours worth of setup and then 35 hours worth of maintenance.
Well, that's the second part that we didn't say, which is there's about 34 hours of maintenance time in that first year.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at 15 hours of setup that Kitces estimates and another 34 hours in that first year, or a total of 34 hours in the first year is what he's estimating.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a lot of research into second, third, fourth, fifth year. It does go down slightly. I think we can all attest to that anecdotally. Like once you've had a client for a long time, it becomes a little easier.
Yeah.
But if you just think about the cost of that, I mean, it's just going to price out. That cost forces advisors to have to go up market.
Yeah.
If it really costs that much, there's no way to get the majority of people to subsidize that cost.
Yeah.
And so what we try to do is we try to just make it simpler, but use the same tools and the same service, but like do it light, like a light way. It's like planning light.
Yeah.
And it's just like cutting corners.
Right. What is most of that time made up of?
I mean, if we had to kind of extract it, it's going to be data entry. It's going to be data entry, data maintenance. A lot of it is interactions it's the time spent between the advisor and client trying to agree on the numbers and make sure the numbers are accurate. Am I looking at an accurate picture here?
Yeah.
Like, there's just this real inefficient, are we on the same page? Like that's a really hard, with your data. Like, do we agree that this is right? That's a hard thing to do, especially when you get at scale. And that problem, I just don't think we can solve that problem like in the using the traditional means of service, where we're going to take on that problem.
What else is in that time? So like getting the data, agreeing with the client, what else is in that time?
I mean, we have a lot of assumptions that we have to make and think and analysis
let's think about that real quickly. Like, we've got to decide what something like, it used to be really simple to decide what inflation number we're going to put in. Mm-hmm. Turns out, like, that you got to think about that now.
Yeah.
You got to think about rates of return, standard deviation, correlations for every asset class just to build a Monte Carlo.
Yeah.
Like, you got all of that stuff.
You also have to, I mean, if you think about a traditional like job map, if you use Anthony Ulwick's definition of a functional job, you always have the gathering of information kind of up front, right, which we talked about.
Yeah.
You also have this analysis of information
Right.
stage.
Right.
And advisors spending a lot of time looking at different screens, comparing different documents, thinking about whether a piece of data they're looking at is the right thing, or they need to ask a follow-up question to the client to clarify what they're looking at. There's just a lot of analysis, and because it's not all in one place, and it's not in one easy to view location, then it's a lot of time is spent kind of inefficiently analyzing information.
So that's where
a lot of the 15 hours come from.
Yeah.
And the 34.
And what's the reason we're even like? I always think it's interesting to think about for what purpose.
Well, one more place where the time cost is at is between the advisor and the associate advisor and the paraplanner sort of agreeing on whether this plan looks good.
Yeah.
It's like there's not like because it's a presentation, it's like a deck, right? You're trying to get something ready to show people.
Yeah.
And it's got to be pretty, and it's got to feel good, and it's got to like have the right wording, and it's got to be not just what the software is putting out, but whatever custom documents you're going to create to supplement that. That then becomes like a whole presentation and visual aesthetic thing and design aesthetic thing, and like now I've got to make it look good and make sure the copy and the font and everything just kind of fits right on the page. So it can be depending on the level of complexity you're going for. Some people can choose to do that all within software and just say I'm not going to do anything else. And so that's why it's an average of time. Some people are going to be less, some are going to be more.
Yeah. So that's the problem. And that's so the problem is it takes a lot of time. We understand a little bit about, we've all experienced this, how much time it takes to do all these things. We didn't even talk about the idea of like deciding who's going to be the assumer. I mean, we pointed to it.
So I want to just go back to the Anthony Olwick job map. We have gather and collect. We have analyze the data, analyze stuff. This is like the CFP planning process almost. Making decisions is that third step. Making decisions happens before the client meeting, in the client meeting, and then again after the client meeting. Like decision making's challenging.
Right.
And then you also have this kind of like action implementation kind of like stage 2, like it's like a whole thing, I have implement and act, I have decide, I've got analyze, and I've got gather data, and all of that complexity is where the problem, where the cost problem comes in.
And it largely almost feels like when we say customized and comprehensive, sometimes we mean that. Like it almost feels like a new process each time.
When someone's worth like a lot of money, and they're hiring you for this in-depth customization, it's actually a great process for that. I mean,
and works well.
It's purpose-built for that top 1%.
Okay, so that's the problem. That's where the time is spent. What problem does that introduce in terms of the business model, right? For an advisor trying to serve people, like why is that a problem? It sounds like an interesting model. Like
I'm curious what you think. You answer that question.
Well, I'm generally only interested in questions that I don't know the answer to, but I do know the answer. I do know the answer to this one.
Yeah.
Like it feels to me like the reason that's a problem. Like that's how it's done now. Like we've got a problem. Here's how it's done now. Here's the outcome of how it's done now, which is I just simply can't serve very many people.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the reason many of us got into this business, speaking broadly, was to serve people. And I specifically can't serve the type of people I wanted to serve. I can answer questions about the tax breaks for the private jet, but I can't help somebody decide how much they should put down on their car.
And sadly, it even starts with your immediate family. You can't even really service your immediate family.
This has been such a problem for me for so long. Like the number of times I've thought about, gosh, I really want to help that person. Like at church, it would happen. Like, hey, could you help me? And I'd be like, I can't. I remember talking to my friend who was at a big firm that will go nameless, but its initials are G and S. And he went to the same congregation as I did. And I remember asking him, like, how come you never help these people? He's like, well, because I'm at G and S. Like, I can't help those people. But we're all trying to get there. So that's the problem. To me, that's the problem from an industry perspective. It takes a lot of time. Therefore, I've got to move up market, and if I don't move up market, then I will die. And that's why we see this attrition rate.
Yeah, and so it's been really hard for us to come up with a solution to this, but I think we have one.
Let's talk about
is going to work.
So there's the problem. Takes a lot of time. What's the solution?
Now, I had this problem working with dentists when I started my practice. When I'm working with these really successful orthodontists that have millions of dollars of income, my traditional model was fine.
And still is.
And still is amazing.
Yep.
But then I would get, because I positioned myself as dentist advisors, I wasn't getting exclusively orthodontists, right? And I was getting general dentists that came out of school with $500,000 in debt and a reasonably high income, like the $150,000, $180,000, you know.
Right.
Some of them were over 200, but like their ability to pay for planning and maybe their ability to pay for me, right, through either AUM fees or planning fees was very different than some of my high-end clients. And I didn't have the heart to say no. And I was just like, okay, like, what do we have to do to re-engineer? Instead of just being like, sorry, come back when you have more AUM, or come back to me in 10 years when you got some money. Because I
can't serve you.
I was meeting with these people that were late stage in their careers, and they had made so many mistakes.
Right.
And I was like heartbroken.
Where were you 10 years ago?
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, so I'm going to turn away these people so that they can go get broken, and then I'll fix them at 50, you know, when they have resources. Yeah. So that's where Elements was born, from that problem. And I was like, okay, we've got to re-engineer this entire thing.
Why? Let's just get really specific. Why do you have to re-engineer it?
The time to set this thing up in the software and the time to maintain this thing. Number one, the whole thing wasn't what they even were asking for. This other customer
overkill
was just saying like, dude, how do I refinance my loans? Well, I'm like,
sorry, it depends. I have to build you a whole
Sorry, it depends. I need to see all of your information.
Yeah.
He's like, I literally have like I could pay you $400. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like I can't make a living.
It's going to take me 15 hours.
It's going to take me like 15 hours and 34 hours to maintain.
Yeah.
And so I started by just saying, okay, I can't just collect data, because I told me and Ryan did this experiment. Ryan Isaac, first employee that was working with clients with me. Now he was at the time only had like a year's worth of experience, and so it wasn't. He would go. I would put him in front of a client. I'd be like, Ryan's cheaper than me, so Ryan could meet with him. And then what would happen is Ryan would then gather all their paperwork up and bring me all this stuff and be like, here's all their stuff. Do you want me to put it inside of the software and start like building a plan? And I'm like, I already am like losing money right now. Like I'm trying to just do this at the lowest possible way. Yeah. And Ryan would put this big stack of papers on my desk and be like, what do you think we should do? Yeah. And I'd be like, dude, I need you to show me something else that's faster for me to answer the questions. Because he's like, they just want to know this question and this question. Yeah. And I'm like, I have a stack of papers in front of me. Like, what am I going to do with this? Like, it's going to take me 3 hours to analyze it all. Again, the analysis problem. Yeah. So we started developing a little like cheap scorecard, right? Of like some basic analytics. Like, okay, Ryan, take their income, and I want you to first take their income and tell me what they're spending, and then give me like a ratio of their gross income to spending, so I could just see a ratio, 82%. Right. Start there, because I at least need to know how upside down is this person on their cash flow. Yep. And then like, are they saving any money? Just show me that ratio. Like, are they saving anything right now? What's their debt to income ratio? I need to know that. What's their effective tax rate? I need to know that. You know, what marginal bracket are they in? Like, how much insurance do they have? I just need to know all that stuff. Can you go and like collect it, and then from all this stuff, like get it down to just one sheet for me of analysis, which we started calling financial vital signs, right? And that was the beginning of when I started to see in my head, like, if the expensive person, me, the advisor, could just sit in front of a screen and see the financial vitals and the question.
Which is just a set of ratios.
Just a set of ratios.
Really important ratios.
Important ratios. Holistic ratios. Like, I can't just get one. Right. I need, like, the whole enchilada. Because I don't want this to be planning light. This is going to be comprehensive, holistic answers.
Purpose-built for the
Purpose-built for this younger accumulator, 99% of the world.
Keep in mind, like, this is not purpose-built for, like, the like low market. We're talking about a dentist making like it's purpose built for 99% of the population.
Yes, and this isn't poverty customer. This is I couldn't even work with someone making $150,000, without this. So first it was built in Excel, and then it was built in we just try to advance it, and now we call it the Element Scorecard.
So the vitals, which are the set of ratios, wrapped up beautifully in this thing that we call the scorecard, is what you're proposing is the solution, is what you've developed as the solution to this idea that it takes too much time.
Yes, because it already, think about if you're lucky enough to be able to get your clients to engage. Like if you teach them about a scorecard, they're more likely to engage.
Yep.
And Elements is doing all kinds of creative stuff right now that is going to be coming out for the next 6 months to improve our onboarding flows with like really motivating gamification.
Right.
And so we're going to gamify this engagement with the end client so that they take a little bit more responsibility under the data collection and data gathering and data maintenance. I'm thinking of a world where there's a badge. And you're the complete client badge. You're like, you got the gold star badge of complete your data. Yeah. Now, if that client can maintain their data, I have eliminated like 30 hours a year of cost.
And there's all these other side benefits that helps the client.
Yes.
But
I've eliminated analysis time.
Something we'll talk about another time. But the idea that it takes a bunch of time, I can get a set of financial vitals that will interactively allow me to make critical decisions and answer a question. I can wrap that up in a beautiful package called a scorecard.
Yes.
Right? That's the solution to the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that if we go back to the costs, we're removing costs. We're lowering cost in data maintenance and collection.
Yeah.
We're lowering analysis cost.
Yeah, analysis cost is important. You just don't think much about that because it's the thing that you almost like to do.
The cost you really can't reduce. We're also eliminating. We're creating the opportunity to eliminate the implement cost. I actually don't think if you're trying to drive costs down, you implementing someone else's stuff is a pretty big cost.
Yep.
And there's a customer out there who just wants their question answered. They want you to do the third step in that 4-step flow, which is decide for me.
Yep.
You decide. You tell me what to do. And each question has those 4 steps. Gather it, analyze it, decide it, and then go act on it.
Yeah.
And most people are willing to gather the data. Element Scorecard analyzes it for you.
Yeah.
You just have to make a decision, and the client can go take care of it. That's a way to finally get to the place where you're like, hey, dentist, I can't give you a comprehensive financial plan the way I do for my most wealthy customers or complex clients.
I have to
okay,
just
pause me
real
on this.
quickly just because I want to keep this really tight and clean. But this financial planning thing is really interesting. We were all doing a job that cost us a lot of money, made us unprofitable, and the client didn't even ask for or want.
No. We just didn't have anything else to sell.
We don't, because this tool was built, it was the only set of tools we had, this comprehensive financial plan set of tools. There's nothing wrong with it. But we don't, if I can quickly help people answer questions using an objective set of financial measures, financial ratios called vitals, wrapped up in a beautiful sort of output called a scorecard, then I'm solving the problem.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm doing it in a lot less time. So it's not financial light. It's not dumbed down. It's actually, if we were to scrap, if we were to say, we have no tools, start from the beginning, but I only want you to build tools to serve the 99% of the population. Right? And if we didn't have this sunk cost problem and this legacy problem, we would build a tool like that. We wouldn't build, we may not even go out and use a tool that was built for the atomic bomb. You know what I mean? So that to me is why it gets beautiful. So the problem, let's just repeat, it takes a lot of time to
set up and maintain
a client. The solution is an objective set of financial measurements, which we're calling financial vitals, wrapped up in a beautiful presentation called a scorecard.
Yeah.
Amen,
Love it,
Reese.
man. Carry on.